Good afternoon, dear colleagues and friends. I'm glad to welcome you to our online meeting, Experience of Working with Forced Migrants, Germany. My name is Nazarii Boiarskyi, and I represent Ukrainian organization Democratic Initiatives Incubator, and today I will moderate this webinar. The event is held for interested people from the Eastern Partnership countries and is the part of series of meetings dedicated to the experience of working with forced migrants from different countries, and the online meeting is organized by the NGO Democratic Initiatives Incubator Ukraine within the framework of the project, the response of citizenship education to the challenges of forced migration, which is implemented by the working group of EENCE network, Citizenship, Education and Forced Migration, supported by the Federal Agency for Civil Education, using funds appropriated by the Federal Foreign Office, Germany. Next hour we will spend together, and therefore I would like to share some wishes for our joint work. In case of technical problems, try to restarting the connection by pressing F5 or rounding the page. If you join us via Zoom platform, you have possibility to write your comments and ask your questions through our chat. Also, if you're watching us on Facebook, I also have second device where I will be happy to pay attention and also read your comments there if you prefer to watch us online via social medias. And also, as I said, our participants from Zoom, we are doing video recording of this online meeting, but you will be not filmed in case if you not turn on your camera and microphone. With a small introduction, I would like to invite our speaker, Tanja Hoggan-Kloubert. I hope I pronounce it correctly. And I met Tanja this year actually on big EENCE conference in Moldova, and I was very inspired by her presentation. So I hope that we will also have today beautiful and meaningful discussion presentation about experience of Germany. And I know that for your own experience, especially. So dear Tanja, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nazarii, for invitation, and thank you all for coming and for dedicating time to this topic about forced migration and working with forced migrants in Germany. I hope that this small insight in the work that we here in Germany are doing will be of any practical interest for you. I will speak in English and will try to be understandable, especially because my dialect or my accent is a Ukrainian one. So I think at least people from Ukraine will understand my English pretty well. If not, just let me know. It's absolutely sufficient if you do any kind of reaction using the reaction icons, and I will just repeat the sentence that I said before. And please feel welcome to pose any kind of questions, be it in the chat, or if you want to make yourself remarkable through raising any kind of hands or other icons. And I will try to address the question while giving my presentation. I have prepared several slides to give you examples, but I am happy really to go deeper into what is interesting for you. So feel free to interrupt me. I think the dialogue is always better as just lecturing about this topic. So forced migration in Germany is a topic that I will be speaking about. I will be speaking about on a very concrete example. On the example of the city of Augsburg, which is in Bavaria, the southern part of Germany, and in example, using the example of a very specific association, German-Ukrainian Dialog association that has been founded immediately after the start of the Russian war on Ukraine. By my colleague and me, and I have an honor to be the chairwoman of this association. Some facts that you have the background about our work. Actually, on the 24th of February, we in Augsburg people were, as all of you probably, sitting from the 5 o'clock in the morning on our phones and asking ourselves questions, what should we do? We in Augsburg, we have been in a privileged position of not being threatened by the war immediately, so we can plan our action in a peaceful Augsburg. But gathering the people who live here in Augsburg and who were concerned about the war in my apartment, we decided there needs to be a collective action as a response to the war in Augsburg. So we called all the local administrative people and politicians, and at 6 o'clock in the evening, we gathered together with the mayor of the city of Augsburg and the deputies of the city parliament on the big town square, where we decided what can we do, what shall we do. And we promised each other on this square, on this piazza, on the Rathausplatz, that the city of Augsburg, all the organizations in Augsburg, people in Augsburg, we will work hand in hand to give our response and to give our address to the war. And I think in a certain case, we managed to fulfill this promise. From the very beginning, we, the Ukrainians living in Augsburg or people who feel connected to Ukraine, that we need to be prepared because people will come to Augsburg. And that's why actually from the 25th of February, city administration started to prepare everything for forced migrants coming from Ukraine. And this preparation was not being done only by the city of Augsburg alone, but it was a daily Zoom meeting with Ukrainians, with all the other volunteer organizations, with the mayor, and with people responsible for different parts of administrative work in the city council. So this is something that I would call model Augsburg, that from the second day of war, it was a very deep and fruitful collaboration and cooperation between different stakeholders, where the state system, the administrative system, the system of Augsburg was very, very closely working together with Ukrainians. It was not done for Ukrainians without Ukrainians, but it was a very successful example how we can do together. How can we articulate our needs? How can we anticipate the needs? And how can we react proactively to the possible needs of this tragedy of the war and of the forced migration? Now, so this is the small pretext and context of what I will be speaking about. And now I would share my slides with you, the PowerPoint presentation that will give you also some probably visual, once it works, yes, some visual examples of what we are doing here in Augsburg. When I speak about we, I don't speak about a certain group of people. I speak about a Verein, an association with the name Deutsch, ukrainische Dialog, so German-Ukrainian Dialog. There are people from Augsburg, Germans, Poles, but also Ukrainian diaspora who organize this association in a commitment to the idea of working and cooperating together. In the commitment to integration, to dialogue between Germans and Ukrainians. And we said something bad, it started, something awful has been started. And it was the war, obviously, but we said this war needs our help now, and this war will need our help and cooperation after it ends, after the victory of Ukraine, because then this German-Ukrainian dialogue can be continued after the war. So all we do here, all our work with forced migrants, we always have this optimist perspective. One day Ukraine will win, and we will continue the German-Ukrainian dialogue after the war between the two independent, strong, democratic countries. And I think this is, you will feel these ideas through the initiatives I will be talking about. And I think this is the driving force behind all our efforts. So we asked ourselves, what does it mean for Germany and concrete for the city of Augsburg that people from Ukraine will come, that people from Ukraine will need protection, and people from Ukraine will change actually the image of the city of Augsburg. And we said that, yes, the city's face will be changed. Our the way population is now, the groups of population that are represented in the city of Augsburg, it will change too. And we will need new models. How can we live together? Then, because Augsburg is the city with the highest migration population in Germany. We have, according to the newest statistics, we have 51% of people with migration background in Augsburg. So it's really the highest number. And city of Augsburg is famous and is actually proud to be the so-called city of peace, of the historical peace of Augsburg, but also nowadays peace of Augsburg, where different groups will be living together, or can live together in dialogue and cooperation. So we said now a new group is coming into a situation actually where a Russian minority is one of the most numerous here in Augsburg, and we did ask ourselves what will it mean and how can we position ourselves so that it works. And indeed, it happened. The city of Augsburg now, only the city, not the suburbs, not the counts 5,000 Ukrainian migrants. So the whole population of the city of Augsburg is around 300,000, and now we have 5,000 Ukrainian migrants. So you see, when you now go through Augsburg, I would say on the streets, probably every 10 person, statistically it's not quite correct, but it's my feeling, is from Ukraine. So you hear Ukrainian language or Russian language with Ukrainian dialect. You see people, you see a lot of kids speaking Ukrainian, and Ukrainians do change the city of Augsburg, and I hope the change will be sustainable, and we will embrace this new diversity that was created by the war, and embrace these new challenges that we all together will address. The challenges of democracy in Germany, and the challenges of war in Ukraine. Because, as you know, Germany for the long period of time was very Russophile, and very oriented towards Russian culture, Russian politics, on the economic level, but also on the cultural level. So for us, it was very clearly that this war will mean also shift in meanings, shift in perception, and we need to co-create this shift. If we don't have the initiative, then somebody else will take the initiative and will create new narratives without us, and that's something that we didn't want to allow. So our association, we said from the very beginning, it is a new period of transformation. And we need to have platforms where we can discuss what is now possible in our societies, what is needed, what is desirable, what is aspirational, and how can we be very active in doing something, in creating together something, and not just react to the challenges that we perceive from outside. You know, to the different statistic, if you compare the 20% of Ukrainian population is actually migrants in different sense, and 4 million is abroad, it's a huge number of people who were forced to leave their houses, to come into country where some of them have never been to before, whereas they don't speak a language, whereas they don't know the culture, whereas they don't know the system of work, of school, of universities, and so on and so forth. So I remember from the beginning, when people started to come there, I started to have small talks with them, and then I started to record these talks, because there were stories that have been told to me. And I remember that one of the women from Kharkiv said to me, you know, we are so grateful and happy that we have shelter, and we're so grateful and happy that we have food, and we have peace. But you know what? After a while, it feels like as if we were a pet who has shelter and food. We want to do something. We want to feel as human. And as a human being, we feel only when we do something. So help us doing something. And I think this interview, this talk with this woman, give me a kind of impulse how to work, if you want, because it's probably also not a correct term, but let me stay with this, how to work with forced migrants coming from Ukraine, and what are the main need after having shelter and having food. People who came here were people struggling immensely with the feeling of guilt of having left their homes, feeling of guilt that haven't been doing something for their country. And our task, the task of our association, was to mitigate as far as we can this feeling of guilt, and instead to give people the feeling of being agent, being capable of doing something for their country, even if they are not directly in the country, they are from abroad, but even in Augsburg they can do something for their country. How did we start more concretely? Because so far there were a lot of framing, so excuse me for this long way to the concrete steps, but I think it's for me it's so important to know the background thoughts, because if you look what we have done, it's a work. But this work was driven by certain sets of attitudes and certain sets of mindsets. And I would want to discuss with you after the presentation, how is your perception on our, if you want, a background and on our framing of the working with forced migrant in Augsburg. How did we start? So we realized people come here without any orientation. They come here without knowing what to do, where to live, what to write, and so on and so forth. So we notified there is a huge need of information, of very basic information. What documents do I need to submit to this or that state authority? Where can I find a place to live? Where can I find medical insurance, and so on and so forth? So we organized together with the city of Augsburg the so-called info point for refugees, and this info point was a center where our volunteers worked from 9 o'clock in the evening till 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the evening, just helping people find their first step, do their first step, and find their ways into the German society. I remember we had once a family that just arrived in Augsburg without any knowledge of the language, without any experience of living abroad, and there were 3 children and 2 dogs and 1 cat. And these 3 children, 2 dogs and 1 cat, were sitting in our info point and saying, we don't leave the info point because we don't know where. And when we try to when we try to call on normal shelters for refugees, they say we don't take people with animals. So I'm sorry, you need to give our animals away to the animal shelter. And we say, no way. People took the animals through the whole countries on their whole way here. We cannot do this. So then we decided also together with the city of Augsburg that we will have an appeal to the citizens, to the people in Augsburg who would be willing to give their private living space to Ukrainian refugees. And on the page of the city of Augsburg, on all the channels and all the newspapers, there was an address to the citizens of Augsburg. And indeed, within 3 weeks, we had more than 400 citizens of Augsburg who volunteered to give their apartments or their parts of houses or even a room to Ukrainian refugees for free. And I think this was also one of the small signs that people here in Augsburg tried also to make their own contribution to mitigate the causes, not the causes, but the impacts of this awful war. So our info point was also probably necessary in the special situation of German bureaucracy. You know, we to each refugee that came to us, we gave to him or to her a folder. And we said, this is a huge, thick folder. And we said, this is a folder that you will need for your documentation, for all the paperwork that you will be going through while registering yourself at this authority and that authority and that authority. They were laughing at the beginning and saying, will we really need this thick folder? After a month, they came to us and asked for another folder because the first one was full. It's just a metaphor for you to understand the level of the German bureaucracy, the amount of letters and the documents that people who come here need to fill out. We did with German authorities translation work so that all the documents were translated also by us into Ukrainian. But still, even translated into Ukrainian, the professional terms used there were so incomprehensible for any person who is not living there in this system of bureaucracy that really info point of most of our work was just filling the documents. One Ukrainian woman in one of the interviews told me that you know, as a joke, but it's probably also a nice illustration of this concrete situation. She told me, you know, German state and German people are very, very smart. They loaded so much paperwork on us that now we are thinking only about how to fill out our forms and documents. And actually, we are not concerned about war. We don't have time to live out our traumas. We don't have time to be sad or whatever. We have to do something, to fill out the documents from the 9 o'clock in the evening till 8 o'clock in the night. You know what I mean, vice versa, 9 o'clock in the morning till 8 in the night. So this huge amount of work just to start the life here and to have the registration, to have official documents and so on and so forth. And this info point existed in these forms that I have described till July 15. Together with the city of Augsburg, we did the work I have described. In July, we noticed that we don't have this need to provide the urgent aid, urgent support in providing apartment and filling out the document. And we found there is more and more need for people to have a place where they can come, to have a place where they have a connection to have a place that would reinforce their identity and probably pull them out of their isolation, living in a foreign country, and so on and so forth. So we gave a new name to our center, and this new name also marked a turn in our work with Ukrainian refugees. We out of info point, we made meeting point, and meeting point was conceptualized by us as space of encounter between Germans and Ukrainians, between refugees and locals, between different groups of refugees, and so on and so forth. We still have the so-called hotline, where we give the urgent consultation in the basic question. It's still going on, but now it's only on as a hotline. But we converted completely our center to the meeting point, and we asked our people who were coming to us. Now we have a database of around 1,000 people with whom we work here in Augsburg, and we asked them, how about this? You fill out a small form. How would you want to see this place? What are your needs, and how can we address these needs? And the second question was, what would you want to contribute to this place? Can you offer something? Can you offer a course? Can you offer a consultation? Can you offer psychological help, depending on your qualification in Ukraine? For us, was important that people who came here, that they felt recognized, acknowledged, and valuable. That they, by us, that they felt addressed, not at those, not only as those in need, but also as a person with strength, with power, with skills, with competences. And these competences that people bring with us, we want to highlight them, to stress them, to give people this platform of not feeling helpless, but of feeling active. And we were surprised that, or probably not really, but at least we were excited that a very, very big amount of refugees came up with ideas how they can fill in our space of encounter, our meeting point. So all the initiatives that we have now in our meeting point, we have together with locals, with refugees, with Germans, and so on and so forth. So people who came here as refugees are now, I would say, active members of Augsburg society. I don't know how, if I can say that it goes beyond Augsburg, or if that is applicable to anyone. But a lot of people who came here had a possibility to use their skills, to use their knowledge, to feel empowered and addressed and recognized in their assets and in their in what they brought with them. I tried to switch the slides, that's why the pause. One of the projects that we started in August, and that is still going till today. I brought you the recent announcement, as you see, the announcement of Halloween, but the project is not about Halloween. It's a project with the name Yavtebe, I'm Here for You, organized by the refugees for the refugees. Each Wednesday, we gather together at 6 o'clock in the evening, mostly mothers with their children or women. And we have a place where a person from our center play different games with the children, and we have space where mothers can talk with each other, can find consolidation, can find comfort, and talk with each other. And this format, Yavtebe, I'm here with you for you, is at some Wednesdays we have over 100 people. And it's something that is started in August, and I don't see it actually stopping very recently. So now I would say it's one of the probably most famous projects that our association has fulfilled to outside, that people know where to go, where to find help, where to find dialogue, and how to be with each other. And it's not only about, yes, there are some sad moments, yeah, but we try also to find a possibility to live a life together and to have to have also small joy in and small energy in the everyday life. So when we say we're inviting to Halloween party, where we provide some food and some drinks and some costumes, and children who had this awful experience of being forced to migrate, they can have a little bit peaceful everyday life. They can have one probably festivity. They could have a moment of probably normal childhood that it's difficult to have in a country where you don't have connection to, where you don't speak the language, where you do not know anything and you don't feel familiar. What we do from the very beginning, we provide regularly information evening and counseling evenings for people, not only to be together, to have this level of comfort, but also to understand the system in which they live. So I brought also the recent one, that information evening that will be held this Friday. It's about, do you want to study at a university in Germany? What are the requirements? What do you need to fill out, and so on and so forth. So it's one of the examples how we do our consultation work. We ask people from international offices from University of Augsburg, from the University of Applied Sciences of Augsburg, to come here and to give to our Ukrainian families information that might be useful for their children. Previously, in July, we gave an overview about different types of schools in Germany. Then we also gave an overview about different types of further education in Germany. So what we want people to have, we want them to have this feeling of orientation. I know the system. I know what are my options. I know what are my possibilities. I know where to ask. I know where to go. I am not forced into something. I don't have a feeling that I'm totally helpless and something is rolling out on me. We want people to have this power. I can choose. I know the options, I know the possibilities, I know where to ask for help, I know where to ask for advice, and I can decide for myself, for my family, and for the kid. So that's why this is the format of these counseling and information evenings, with the purpose to understand the system as a whole. But of course, it would be dishonest if I concentrate only on the bright and shiny aspects of working with forced migrant here in Augsburg. We noticed very early that people who come there, that they need support on different ways. And we have two branches of psychological support, psychological help that we started. One for adults, and with the title, what does it mean to be not alone? We are nearby. And the idea is also in a kind of group session to speak about the experience, to find resources, how to work with the experience. For this, we have engaged two psychologists who speak Ukrainian and who has been recognized in Germany and in Ukraine in their professional competences, just to be sure that what we offer, that we offer this with a good consciousness of providing professional help. Also, we organize for young children every Sunday for a long period of time, psychological group consultation for children between 16 and 18. We noticed that these children were those who didn't know where to go at the beginning. The small children were involved in any kind of school activities and so on and so forth. The adults needed to fulfill their everyday life task, and the children between 16 and 18, this was the group that got silenced. They were in their computer, talking with their peers in Ukraine and somewhere else, and they were not present. They didn't come to us at the beginning. Their parents told us that they cannot find a way for teenagers of this age to participate, to be there, to integrate. So that's why we tried also to provide venues, possibilities for them to go out. And we started with a theater workshop. And at the beginning, in May and in June, it was a pantomime theater. So theater where you don't need a lot of language. And we started also with building requisites for the theater, or something that you can do even if you don't speak a language. The third project now, the theater project, we continue with a theater, young theater in Augsburg here, is really a project where a Ukrainian teenager participated with dances, with singing, with language, with a kind of mix of expression possibilities that they have acquired so far. And at the end of this workshop, we had a joint performance where German teenager was from different others migrants group together with Ukrainian refugees teenager, had a small presentation for their parents and friends. This is, I will give you some of the examples, interrupt me if it's too much or if you want to know a little bit more. This is example that I am very, very proud about. A woman who offers this creative course, drawing and painting for children. She had her own art school in Ukraine. She, in the talk, in the interview with me, she noticed, she mentioned that she was working 6 years to open the school, the art school in Ukraine. It was the dream of her life to have an art school. She opened the art school 5 months before the war started. And then when the war started, she left art school, all her dreams connected to this. And she was forced to leave her home city that was under the heavy attack by Russians and to come in Augsburg. And when she came, she said, the only thing I want to do, I want to teach people art because I think this is what we need. And we started art projects and art courses for children, for teenagers, and now for adults, where people can just come to her and she shares her experience, different techniques, where they all enjoying their creative process. Now our meeting point, our space of encounter, has wonderful wallpapers, actually, with these paintings and drawings made by children who come now to her Augsburgian version of art school. And we, from the very beginning, we said people need language. And even if a German state provides access to integration courses, we still think people need something like very low threshold possibilities to find their familiarity, their comfort with a language. So we have a special course for teenager, where they can, in a very free atmosphere, without big expectation and so on and so forth, try themselves to speak this language. And we have also ongoing courses for adults, where we also create a space where you can learn without fear, without pressure, but still with the methods of learning a language that are encouraging and help you to feel connected to the society that you live in. Of course, we don't, and these are just examples of some activities. I will, at the end, I will show you our internet page where all our activities, or the most of them, are described in different languages in a more detailed way. I do kind of cherry picking here to giving you a feeling what's going on and what we are doing here. Of course, we are not only concerned with our center and the work as it is done by our center. We also want to change the perception on different levels. We also want to co-create the frameworks, the context in which refugees live here and will be living for I don't know how many months else or how many years else. That's why we actively participate in all the kinds of political fora with different parties of Bavaria level or on local level, where we co-discuss, make our contributions to create a new integration plan of the city of Augsburg, creating a new integration politics. That's why we met with a representative of Bavarian Landtag, of Bavarian Parliament. So we are constantly in the dialogue with the politicians where we want our voice to be heard, and where we see a possibility now to change a lot of things that in the integrational politics of the country or of Bavaria haven't been too successful, to speak a little bit politely. And we indicate these problems from the experience. We articulate the needs of Ukrainian migrants, and we understand, the association, we understand ourselves as being advocate of those people, and we want to all together with them to fight for the rights and for liberties and duties of Ukrainian refugees who were forced to leave their home and come here to Bavaria. So I promised you that I will actually stop there and probably show you our page if you want some more information, and then I have some concluding slides, and I hope we can have a discussion. So let me go out of the presentation mode and then come back to our internet page. Oops. Now it works. So on the internet page, Deutsch, ukrainische Dialog, you find here in the small windows all our projects that are going on now. This, as you see, was a Halloween project. There's the videos that you see with the children. And we have, I am here now, we have concerts by Ukrainian musicians coming here also as refugees, where we offer them a stage to sing with us their songs, to find through music their way to say something, what they brought with them. We organize to each important day, we organize a demonstration here in Augsburg, where we want citizens of Augsburg to know what's going on in Ukraine, to hear our voices, to find possibilities also to show their solidarity. All these demonstrations are frequently visited by politicians from the local and even national level. We had here the Minister of Culture, Claudia Roth. We had the deputies of Bavarian Parliament. We had the deputies of Bundestag on our stage speaking in favor of Ukraine and giving the words of support for Ukraine on a national level. So even if Augsburg is actually a small provincial city, I think it turns out to be a stage, to be actually a very impulse-giving city where we are not quiet, where people in Augsburg and outside of Augsburg know Ukrainians are loud, and Ukrainian in positive sense. Ukrainians know how to defend themselves not only in Ukraine but also here. But Ukrainians are also collaborative and cooperative. We know how to work with each other. We don't wait the state to come and to decide for us. We know how to take initiative, how to do networking, how to articulate our needs, try to find resources to fulfill our needs, and to stay together. I want to show you also this picture, if it works. It was a special a project also organized by a Ukrainian refugee, a woman who worked in Lviv Academy of Art, and who came here and started to work at the Augsburg Museum. And she said, in the museum, together with our association, I want to make different art projects to bring the Ukrainian culture here in Augsburg also visually. So in the biggest museum of Augsburg, in the Schätzler Palais, there was a performance made by her, organized by her in cooperation with us, where national costumes made by an artist, so specially prepared national costumes from different regions of Ukraine were represented on this exhibition, and we let every region of Ukraine speak with their own story, with their own voice, with their own tradition, if you want, and to tell the stories of these women who were the national costumes. I think I could go on. I love the work that we are doing, as you see that I am very excited about. This was our presentation to the Independence Day, where we had over 1,000 people on our Rathausplatz, and we had a Polish ambassador speaking, staying with Ukrainians and speaking to Germans from the perspective of an East European politician or Middle European politician, and saying that it is now the time to act. And to end my presentation, I have two slides that I want to share with you, and then it's the time to discussion. So I would end the presentation with the way I have started. What is special about all the initiatives that our Verein, our association, is doing? After people received their initial support, where they had their shelter, where they had security, and so on and so forth, we tried to give to these people this feeling of being co-creators of their life. They were, I think, made these people feeling helpless, feeling that somebody from outside can determine their fate, their destiny, their life. And I think this was one of the biggest trauma that they brought with them, together with the trauma of guilt that they have left their country. And we tried to address these issues, these problems, in enabling people to participate, in enabling people to be active, in enabling people to create and to find their voice, not feeling as a recipient of help, but to develop a feeling of a giver, of a person who can. And what we say that when we have victory in front of our eyes with all our initiatives that we do, then we think people who are now here with us in Augsburg, if they decide after the war to come back to Ukraine, they will be those bridges between Ukrainian and German society, people who will probably deepen the Ukrainian-German cooperation, deepen Ukrainian-German dialogue, who bring probably some civic initiatives in there to Ukraine, who will start to be or just continue to be as active as they have been probably before the war, or as they have been in Augsburg in the time of war as a refugee. So I end here, and I would be very happy to address your questions, your concerns probably, or your comments. If you want me to speak about any of the projects in depth, or if you have concrete questions about the topics around refugees that I haven't been addressed so far, let us use the time now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Tanja, for your presentation. So we invite all participants to ask your question. You can just turn on your microphone and ask via voice, or you also can write to our chat. And meanwhile, you thinking and waiting for questions or any kind of comments, I would like to ask you, dear Tanja, you share a lot of initiatives which looks really great, and I would like to ask you, do you and your organization feel support of local government, or I don't know, national institution of Germany? How it works? They support you, they just allow you to do something. How it works in Germany, because we have different situation in different countries.
Yeah, and I need to say this is a very good question, Nazarii, because it allows me also to address some difficulties. I would say it depends in which city of Germany you are, because we know now in Eastern Germany we have these protests, people going on the street trying to force German government to rethink their Russian politics. So in Eastern Germany we have a very special situation where also some hostels for refugees, one hostel has been put on fire, right? Because there are some hostilities towards refugees from Ukraine. I cannot address this in depth, but I'm happy to if you want me. But let me concentrate on Augsburg. And I would say there is a difference between South Germany and Eastern Germany in this case, but I would say it's also in Augsburg we have a special case. We do feel supported, especially on a local level, on the level of the city, and probably also on the level of district or rayon, no? If you want to have the administrative unit that have Ukrainian equivalents. So as I told in my presentation, I want to highlight it once more. At the beginning, we had daily, then weekly, and then monthly meetings. We, representatives of Ukrainian diaspora, if you want, together with different authorities in the city of Augsburg. Authority for how to register for foreigners, authority for children and youth, schools, and so on and so forth. We sat together in a Zoom meeting for 2 hours, and we were formulating the problems, the needs, the situations that we have been confronted with, and together with politicians and administrative people on different levels, we were trying to find common solutions, and it worked. It worked as good as it could be, right? So of course we are limited by resources and so on and so forth, and we couldn't create kindergarten places overnight. But there were there have been organized initiatives where Ukrainian women with pedagogical background could have within an existing kindergarten a kind of group for Ukrainian children. So just an example of joint initiatives that we had, and we also, I think we have been very, very vocal. And that was also the feedback that we got from the state of Augsburg, that probably they wouldn't be that active, probably they would, if it's not us being everywhere. They said we didn't know that Augsburg consists 90% of Ukrainians, because it was a feeling like you are everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go, you are everywhere. And the city of Augsburg, at the first day of war, on the main square of the city, hang like a poster with Ukrainian flag and support of Augsburg for Ukraine, stand with Ukraine. And this is a huge banner that every person who comes to Augsburg sees, and it's still hanging in Augsburg. So Augsburg explicitly, now day for day, week for week, month for months, also visually demonstrates this support. And also on the level of Bavarian parliament, we had consultations with deputies involved into reformulating policy and politics of Bavarian government towards Ukrainian refugees. So they consult us before they made decisions. We don't have a feeling that our voice is not heard, and I think this is something that that is probably special for southern part of Bavaria, because on the national level we have also hostilities and problems that we envision. So, for example, the leader of one of the most famous parties, the Christian Democrats Party, Herr Merz, famously 2 weeks ago spoke about the so-called social tourism of Ukrainians, that Ukrainian refugees come here to Germany, get their social aid, and then they go back to Ukraine and go back and forth. And this, so he said, so it's not that difficult to live in Ukraine if you go to Ukraine. And we as an organization, we made also our statement that we condemned actually this kind of dismissive wording chosen by him. And so there are tensions, but I think on the local level there is a help, a readiness to do something, but also an experience that Ukrainians have this level of self-organization, know-how of networking, know-how of collaborating and cooperating with each other. We are not only people who come and demand, we are people who also offer help, collaboration, and so on and so forth. And so far at this level, I think it was as successful as it could be.
Thank you so much for this also like narrative racourse. We had a meeting about experience in Lithuania, and also very interesting because here like people from Ukraine, for example, organize also some activities for local community, for example, lectures about culture, Ukrainian culture, or about relationship between Ukraine and Lithuania in historical and cultural context as well. So yes, people, migrants can be useful for local communities as well. And I would like to ask you one more question, and just remind our participants that you also have all rights and all possibilities to ask your questions, because I see that Victoria wrote good words for us, but we're waiting for questions also. And meanwhile, we're waiting one more question from me, from my side. We're talking about educational and integration programs for forced migrants, but how do you think, is it important to work with the local community and talk with them about migration and which benefits it could give to like local communities, to country in general? Do they need this kind of programs, and maybe you know some examples also?
So you mean programs for local communities how to deal with migration? So
yes, and maybe like about benefits which migration gives to local communities, for example, to support local business or like diversity in community and etc.
Yeah. Thank you. So if you ask Nazarii if there is a need, I would say, of course, there is a need, because on the example of these Eastern Germany demonstrations, we see that there is a social, how you say it, envy, right? A social hostility, especially among people who are vulnerable, local people who are vulnerable, who are also are recipients of social aid, and who now cannot deal with the increase of prices for gas and so on, and they cannot afford their houses, and they are actually in fear of losing their aid or their houses, or not being able just to provide for their families. So yes, there is this tension that now Ukrainian refugees, migrants come to Germany, and they will diminish the prosperity of a German country. So we cannot forget that this tension exists also here. And of course, we have also very pronounced discussions in different other migration communities, whereas the voices have been reasoned, like, why Ukrainians are allowed to do this and this and we haven't been. So some people even spoke about the so-called structural racism, that a German community, German citizens were open to welcome Ukrainian refugees because Ukrainians are somehow closer to them, or whatever. So, and it was difficult to express and to find a position in this situation, because the topic of migration, it's not the topic that was important for me only now. I actually, since 2016, since the so-called Syrian refugee migration wave to Germany, it was a topic that I have been dealing with, writing articles and books about this, and I was addressing the question of migration from the position that we need to, first and foremost, we need to treat migrants as from the position of human dignity, right? So, and it doesn't matter where the migrants come from and what do they bring with them. So, and coming from this position, it was for me difficult to be confronted with the accusation of structural racism. But it is there, and it's there in the society, and we will need to find programs how we can live together in a new society that changed. How can Ukrainians live now together in the same city with Syrian refugees? How Ukrainians can live together with refugees from African countries without these tensions, without this feeling of being neglected or being privileged in the society, but also with local Germans who have fear of losing something that is dear to them. And that's why we need platforms, we need venues, we need spaces where we come together and talk with each other. At least that's what we can do on a local level. So I haven't mentioned what another initiative of our association. We have each Friday the so-called German Ukrainian Stammtisch. Stammtisch is a German concept. It's like of meeting where people just come together to drink beer in principle and to talk about politics. So we offer beer and brezel, so special Bavarian kind of bread, and we let people talk about politics. You know, and then be populistic if you want, but still then to go deeper and to ask, why do we have this view and this opinion? But those are initiatives on a smaller scale. We will need initiative and programs for schools, also from the school system as such, because what I see coming, and in our work with Ukrainian refugees, I think it's inevitable. Now Ukrainians are in the so-called bridge classes in the school, where they learn German and catch up where they need to catch up, and then they go into the regular classes, normally after the New Year's Eve in the 2023. As I mentioned, Augsburg has a huge number of Russian migrants. So we will have in the same class Ukrainian and Russian pupils, students who sit together and who will need to talk with each other. And I know that there were some verbal attacks and some fights on a verbal level between teenagers from Ukraine and teenagers from Russia here in Augsburg. So we will need to find a way so that Ukrainian refugees are acknowledged in their trauma, acknowledged in what they have experienced without relativizing it. and also for people, for migrants from Russia who do not support the war, to find as a way to be active, to contribute, to help and to position themselves if they want to. And if not, then we need programs how to talk with people who, even living in Germany, support Russian war.
Thank you so much for this answer. It's answer like give possibility to ask more and more and open new discussions, but I don't know if we have time for this today, but maybe we'll organize something special. Dear participants, if you have any comments or questions, so it's like last call for you, and for at least for this online meeting. So
and feel free to ask in any other language. We can translate it if you want. So language
from some of them, yes, definitely.
Yes. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
First of all, thank you. That this was very actual topic, which is also very actual for Georgians in Georgia. But what was discussed, it was a perfect overview of the activities your organization is doing and what the society has contributed. But how all of these processes are covered by the local media, it's very important, because media is one of the biggest power and channel to form the to influence the society views and shift the ideas towards many actual issues, problematic issues. And thank you for your answer. And
yeah, thank you for your question, Lela. And I cannot give you a very nuanced and differentiated answer, because then I would need to probably analyze more thoroughly how it's covered by media. But my perception is that all in all, the perception of locals and how it is covered by media is a very positive one. Especially, and even if you look at statistic data, people who are still ready to give support, and you say we will need to give support to Ukrainians as long as they need it. This percentage is high, and you cannot in the main media, not in the kind of conspiracy theory media. So there are they have different discourses, but in the main media, like be it the newspapers, the national newspapers like Die Zeit or Süddeutsche or the Frankfurter Allgemeine, Ukrainian as refugees, they have occupied the pages of the streets with their of the newspapers, with their personal stories, with analysis of the systems that are in place to support Ukrainian migrants, but also with policies and politics towards Ukraine. And these politics and policies are criticized by newspapers if they are not in the interest of Ukraine. So if, for example, the Social Democratic Party now speaks more and more about need to negotiation and need to use diplomacy and peace and so on and so forth, or when before Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, was hesitant about providing weapons for defense for Ukrainians, in the media, politicians who were hesitant towards Ukraine has been criticized. So I had the feeling that media and population, citizens of Germany, were far more probably favorable towards Ukraine than at the beginning the politicians were. And now politicians come also with their steps a little bit behind. Of course, media, what I see now in the media as a topic that has been risen, that the attitude can change very, very soon as people are freezing in their houses and are not being able to pay for their bills. That then this appeal to Ukrainians to end the war through just accepting conditions coming from Russia, that these peace appeals might come very, very soon as the cold weather comes to Germany. So we shall see. So far, I would say media is open and favorable towards Ukrainian refugees.
Thank you so much. So maybe it's also idea to see media and journalists like separate target group for our educational activities about migration and like tolerance. Actually, it's really time to finish our meeting. So, dear Tanja, I would like to ask you, maybe you have some closing words, something to wish us to inspire more and also inspire other countries to share your experience. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so thank you for inviting me there. Thank you for the questions and also for your interest in this topic. And what probably the final word would be, we cannot do too much. We can do only these few things that we can do here. And of course, all of us are so concerned about what's going on, that staying passive was not an option for us. And what we are doing can be also approached from the position, yeah, but it doesn't really help to end the war. Probably not, and I know this. But if in what we are doing helps us to mitigate the suffering, if what we are doing help to create probably some good things for the post-war world, then I think this is something that we can do and we can envision in each country. We can mitigate the suffering, we can make the voices be heard, and we can plan to put the seeds into the earth for the world after the war.
Thank you so much, dear Tanja. So it's time to finish our meeting. And yeah, I just want to share last time some information. So I would like to say that an evaluation form for this online meeting already in our chat. So please find few minutes. It's really short to fill it out. It's allow us to make next meeting more interesting and based on your needs and interests. Thank you so much for this. I also would like to remind that the online meeting experience of working with forced migrants, Germany, is organized by the NGO Democratic Initiatives Incubator Ukraine within the framework of the project, the response of citizenship education to the challenges of forced migration, which is implemented by the working group of EENCE network, citizenship education and forced migration, supported by the Federal Agency for Civil Education, using funds appropriated by the Federal Foreign Office, Germany. Many thanks for all our partners for their support, and that with your support we can have these meetings and they become real. Thank you so much for our online meeting speaker, Tanja, for your time which you spent for preparation and being with us this evening. And especially thanks for our dear participants who find time in this let's tell difficult time to learn something new. And I know that for some of you it's really difficult to participate in real time with us because of problems with electricity, internet, etc. So thank you so much that you found time, and I hope to see you on at our other events. Some of them is still waiting for you. We are looking forward to talk about experience of Armenia, for example, and some other countries, and our past online meetings about experience of working with forced migrants, for example, of Lithuania, Moldova, Estonia. You can find on our YouTube channel democratic initiative Incubator. So thank you so much, and I wish you safe and good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.